Well. Clemson Tiger fans, college football fans, welcome to another instant reaction right here on the Voice of College Football Clemson channel. Me and Jordan are here to break down what in the world we just saw in that Gator Bowl. My goodness, I'm a little flustered right now. To be completely honest, it was an absolutely insane game. Clemson pulls out the victory only slightly, 38-35 against the Kentucky Wildcats in a probably one of the most insane fourth quarter games that I've ever seen in my life. But before we get into the instant reaction, we got 28 of you in here right now. Thank you so much for joining me. If you are not subscribed to the channel, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button for me. It really helps us out. It's greatly appreciated. Hit that like button. We have the super chat feature available if you guys would like to utilize that throughout the show. All your support is appreciated. Man, without further ado, let me get my buddy in here, Jordan Bowman, and let's talk about this game, Jordan. Let's just say it's not how we thought it would be. Clemson did get the win. It was a close game, but it's not at all how we thought it would be. We talked for a couple hours last night about the game and how we thought it would go. And my friend, I don't think it could have gone any differently than kind of the way we thought it would go.
No, it's funny. You brought me on like right when I felt like a sneeze coming on. And you know what? As I've been sitting here for the past like 20 seconds, I've been thinking this game felt like a giant sneeze. Well, at least that fourth quarter, it was like both teams were holding back, like trying not to, blow chunks everywhere. And then that fourth quarter rolls around, and they just couldn't hold it anymore. And we just got one of the craziest fourth quarters of a game I think I've seen in my life, man. I'm still trying to process what happened. I got no words.
Yeah, man.
Happy that Clemson was on the right side of it. A lot of things that went well. A lot of things they were fortunate. A lot of things that they weren't so fortunate with, but they found a way to get the win. And we said last night that you can never really take too much from bowl games, and I still feel that way. But I did think you saw some growth in some areas, some regression in some areas, and we'll talk about that in this game. But with how bowl season is nowadays, with all the opt-outs and all the the emphasis on the lessened emphasis on the importance of bowl games, in favor of the college football playoff and the national championship and all of that. You can never take as much as you used to be able to out of bowl games. They're not predictive. They're not like I don't want to make too many overarching generalizations about this team, heading into next year. But we'll break it down further and talk about some of the guys that either look good, look poor, had a mixed bag, because there's a lot of those. So, but man, just great win.
Yeah.
That one's going to stick with me for a while. This was not a season that I'm going to look back very fondly. But this game will stick with me. That was just a fun, stupid football game. It was a fun, stupid football game. And if you were a non-observer, you're not a fan of Clemson or Kentucky, that was a great football game. Just everything you want out of a mid-tier bowl game. So, man.
Yeah, man. Look, if you were not a fan of Clemson or Kentucky, that fourth quarter could not have gone any better for you. It was absolutely electric. Big play after big play, turnover after turnover, lead change after lead change. I think I told you in the back room before we even started our reaction here, the stat for the fourth quarter, which is absolutely insane. Everybody listen to this for just a second. The fourth quarter alone, taking away the first three. 42 points combined by both teams, 5 turnovers, and 5 lead changes. That was your fourth quarter. I don't think you could come up with a more exciting fourth quarter of football if you tried to script it together in a movie script. It was absolutely insane. It was back and forth. It was basically momentum swing after momentum swing in the fourth quarter. Eventually, Clemson got the best of Kentucky and ended up winning the game. Shout out to the real MVP 24 for coming in here, our resident Kentucky fan. Tough loss for you, man. I know it sucks. I know it hurts. We've definitely been on the end of a few of those the past few years, but I appreciate you showing up, supporting the channel, and what a game by your Kentucky Wildcats, man.
Yeah.
They gave Clemson all they wanted. Some of those huge plays in the fourth quarter, I was just baffled by. It was crazy.
It's great. We talked about it. We thought that I think both sides of this of this game, Clemson fans, Kentucky fans, Clemson and writers, Kentucky writers, they all had a pretty good feel that this game would be a dogfight.
Yeah.
But it certainly was not the fashion of dogfight that we expected. And it just had everything. Like we said, oh man, there's no way that these teams get to 44.5 or whatever the point total was at kickoff. Putting our foots in our mouths there, but I mean, our feet in our mouths there.
Yeah.
That's just bowl season, man. That's just anything can happen, but man, were we wrong.
Yeah, man.
I will say my score prediction, what was it? 20-17 in favor of Clemson. Mm-hmm. So I got the margin of victory right. So I'm going to take that small victory. But in all seriousness, no, thank you, Daryl, for showing up. I know it's always hard, and certainly we've been on the wrong end of these types of games too. It's hard to just show up and after a game like that. But that was a great football game, and Kentucky, Mark Stoops has that's a testament to what Mark Stoops has done. Kentucky is not a team that used to be able to compete with programs that recruited on the level that Clemson has. And especially since they play against a lot of them in the SEC. But man, they played every bit as well as Clemson and better in a lot of areas. And they were just on the wrong end of that, whatever that fourth quarter was. So, I had a ton of respect for Kentucky before this game, and nothing about this game changed that. That is a well-coached, talented football team. Really, they don't. Not all their guys have the recruiting stars, next to their name, but they have some dudes. Barry and Brown, man. I'm gonna remember him for a while. Yeah, that was an incredible performance. That was Spiller-esque, like just with CJ Spiller-esque with just how he affected the game and in every facet. Like that was
everywhere, man, everywhere.
Yeah.
Doing reverses around the end, catching the ball deep down the field, making people miss, kickoff return, 100-yard kickoff return for a freaking touchdown, setting records in the Gator Bowl. I mean, John says it in the chat. The Barry Brown is that dude, man. He is a problem. He is explosive. He's an exciting player to watch. I was about sick of seeing him run all over the field, doing all sorts of craziness. And if I saw another touchdown celebration from him, I was going to throw something at the TV, I swear, because it seemed like he got way too many opportunities to celebrate in that end zone for me to be comfortable as a Clemson fan. But I saw some people, before we really get into it and start breaking down specific players in the matchup, I did want to saw some people mentioning it in the chat earlier. Will Shipley went down at the end with that huge clutch kickoff return, 60-yard kickoff return that put Clemson in the scoring position that aided us in pulling out this victory went down with that knee injury. Shout out to him. Hope he's okay. Hope it's nothing serious. Hope it doesn't affect his NFL career should he decide to declare for the draft. Hope it doesn't affect him long term. Hopefully it's just banged up his knee, hurt a little bit, maybe sprained it. Hopefully no tears or anything that needs any surgical intervention.
Yeah, absolutely. And and I've talked about how Will Shipley has gotten a lot of flack this season. But I don't think there's an example of a Clemson guy than Will Shipley, man. He put it all on the line in that game. Those big returns. It wasn't his only. He had a big return to start the game that aided in Clemson getting that first drive field goal. He didn't have the best game on the ground, but Kentucky's defense is, as we said, they're one of the best. They are a fantastic run defense, and we saw that in full force. But he kept battling, and when the team needed him to make a play, he did it. And
he did, man.
So I just that sucked to watch because you could tell like immediately he knew it didn't look good.
No.
I'm praying for a miracle that the whatever an MRI it comes back not as serious as it looked, but yeah, it just when you're getting carted off like that, and it's never really a good sign. So prayers up to Will Shipley, man. Regardless of what he does after this, I just want to make sure that it's known that he's appreciated, and just what a career, man.
Yeah.
He's definitely going to be. He has he's pretty high up there in a lot of Clemson record books now. I hope that's what people remember him. He's just a great football player and one of our best players in a time where Clemson was kind of hurting for offensive weapons. Shout out to Will Shipley, man.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And I hope his career's not over at Clemson. I'd love to see him back in a Clemson uniform next year. Don't know if that'll happen, but like you said, man, just hope the best for his health. Hopefully he doesn't need surgery. I mean, you saw, I think of one play, not just the two big kickoff returns that he had, but another big play that Shipley had in this game was on that big conversion play where, Kentucky ended up jumping off sides anyway, so it wouldn't have mattered. But, I mean, you just saw he got tackled, pretty much for a loss, kept driving his feet, twist, turn, ended up getting the first down anyway. And that's a play that's kind of the epitome of Will Shipley, right? He's a guy that wears his heart and his emotions on his sleeve. He plays very fiery with a lot of emotion. Shout out to him. If that was his last game as a Clemson Tiger, he definitely left it all out on the field. And, as a Clemson fan, just like you said, it is appreciated. And he had a great Clemson career if that ends up being his last game. So shout out to him. Hope for the best. And let's get into this game, Jordan.
Let's do it, man.
There's a lot to talk about. I know we kind of hit on the fourth quarter already, but we'll kind of push that a little bit to the side. We'll talk about let's chop it up into two halves, okay? We'll talk about the first half first, and then we'll get into that crazy second half. More importantly, that insane fourth quarter that we just witnessed with our own eyes. So, first half, just some thoughts that I had about the first half. It was a pretty balanced, I guess, from a play call standpoint for Clemson. I think they ran 18 rushing plays, 18 passing plays. Not a ton of success on offense for Clemson in the first half. I think they had 95 yards passing, 55 yards rushing. Not great success. The line was giving up some pressure as far as pass pro. Running game was inconsistent due to the offensive line, just like all season. They're just wildly inconsistent. At times they play pretty good. At other times they don't play good at all. The defense gave up some explosive plays in that first half, which is what we kind of talked about in the preview show last night. They gave up that big 58-yard pass play, and then they gave up that big 43-yard rushing play to Davis as well. So there were some breakdowns in coverages, some freshmen in the back end making some mistakes with some of those coverages. So that's just kind of where it was. Again, Kentucky didn't have a ton of success in the first half either. They had 116 yards passing, 67 yards rushing. Although their yards per carry on rushing was, pretty well at 5.6.
I mean, but you have to include, that big 43-yard rush by Ray Davis.
43-yard rush. And then 58 of those 116 passing yards were all on one play as well.
Yeah. And that was the story of this game for this defense was the big plays, and we talked about that. He's like, that's something you can't do, but we knew it was something that this defense had done at times this year. But yeah, that first half, I thought the defense largely played good. One of Kentucky's touchdown drives was it was aided by a pretty questionable no call on that big Dane Key passing play that I have no idea how that wasn't offensive pass interference. Just ran right through him. I guess you can. I guess the argument is that he was running his route, and I guess Khalil Barnes didn't have. I don't know. Khalil Barnes didn't initiate the contact. Is how they saw it. But I don't know how you could say that he initiated the contact.
Yeah,
I don't know. And they had a chance earlier in that drive to get off the field on third down and pass interference call, which I think it was an unfortunate call, but it was the right one. I think Shelton Lewis kind of got tied up on the receiver. I don't remember which one it was, and that's another. That's a 15 yards and a first down. And you saw when Kentucky got that first down, you saw them kind of get confidence, and they took a lot of shots in this game. And which we kind of knew they would do. That's something that they've tried to do all year, and they've tried to get more explosive because they do have really good receivers. I thought in that first half, Clemson largely did a good job. And I thought they contained the run outside of that big Ray Davis run, which, I always hate doing that because it's like it's just kind of like saying, well, other than that, how was the play, Mrs. Lincoln?
Yeah.
And so it doesn't really it doesn't, excuse that big run. But I thought on a down-to-down basis, I thought the defense played fine in that first half and kept Clemson in the game. So.
Yeah, I mean, look, the defense, it was kind of like all or nothing with the defense, right? They were either completely shutting Kentucky down or they were letting some explosive plays happen. And it's just, it's par for the course, but you saw the talent from a lot of these young guys on the defensive side of the ball. I saw Cade Denhoff. This might have been one of Cade Denhoff's best games he's played as a Clemson Tiger, if not his best game. I saw him in on several crucial tackles today, which I haven't seen very much this season. So it's encouraging to just notice small little things like that when you do look at this defense and you think about what's coming back next year and what they're going to look like after, another spring, another summer, another fall camp heading into next year. There's a ton of talent on this team, and, were there mistakes made? Absolutely. But, these guys played out of their minds. I can think of, Barrett Carter today, absolutely out of his mind today. Played amazing. I mean, in run support was great. He tipped that ball up and intercepted it all by himself, all in the same play, which ended up, obviously aiding Clemson in this win. Another big turnover in that fourth quarter, or just by the defense in general. XT comes around the corner, sacks Devin Leary, punches the ball out. Who recovers it? Justin Maskell. So two veteran dudes on that team that we really wanted to send off with a win. and that happens. It's just there was quite a few great plays made by this defense, more than negative plays made by them, and it is encouraging to see all the flashes from that defense today.
Yeah, absolutely. And sticking with the first half, I think just really it was obviously the story of the day, but was the back end of that of the defense, the secondary. They had some moments where they looked really good, and then obviously the bad moments were really really bad. And I think I guess one of the things that I kind of had to think about was this is the first time DBs like Avion Terrell, Shelton Lewis, Khalil Barnes, Kylan Griffin, those guys, this was the first time they were in a situation where they didn't have the security blanket and the leadership necessarily, and kind of the cushion to kind of make mistakes that they did in games earlier this year, because they didn't have Nate Wiggins to kind of tell them where they needed to be, or Sheridan Jones, who's played a lot of football. So I think this was the first time for these guys being the guys, and they had to play a lot of snaps because obviously Clemson wasn't very deep at corner. So I think just when you evaluate it, and like I said, you can't take too much from these bowl games. I still think the world of Avion Terrell and Shelton Lewis. Khalil Barnes, I think, is going to leave Clemson as one of the better defensive backs we've ever had. But they kind of had their baptism by fire today, so to speak, kind of like how the DBs in the Wake Forest game last year did. But I thought they responded, and ultimately Sheldon Lewis was a guy that got picked on a ton in this game, but obviously he makes the game-winning pick. So defense, I'm not going to take too much out of it. I still feel pretty good about where the defense is heading into next year, with some minor questions. But I don't think this was a situation where Wes Goodwin called a poor game or anything like that. I think this was kind of his personnel having to learn really quick, and the 15 bowl practices can only prepare you for so much until you actually get out there and play real football. And this was those guys in the back seven. That was their first time really being the guys, especially at corner. So,
yeah, absolutely. And a game like this will pay dividends moving into the spring and next season, and all that's going to go on between now and then. This team may look quite different come fall camp of next year. You never know what's going to happen. There could be more attrition out of the transfer portal. You never know what's going to happen, but you saw these guys step up in several instances today, and you could only be encouraged going forward as a Clemson fan. Is the defense perfect? No, but they're big time. They make great plays. And they're the reason that Clemson's been in so many games so far this season, and they certainly kept Clemson head above water in this game for much of the game. But the first half, just to kind of cap off the first half, I think it was kind of a game like we thought this entire game was going to be, right? It was, a lot of, just kind of stalemating of the defenses and kind of containing these offenses. You go into halftime, the score was 14-10. Kentucky was up a little bit, and then they came out in the second half and hit that huge 100-yard kick return for touchdown, and that kind of was it until the fourth quarter when it came to scoring for these two teams. So let's go ahead and transition into that fourth quarter a little bit and talk about what happened. I kind of gave the stat a little bit earlier. If there's anybody in here who wasn't in here when I gave the stat, the fourth quarter alone, Kentucky and Clemson combined for 42 points, 5 turnovers, and 5 lead changes in the fourth quarter alone. So it was the epitome of a back and forth, momentum swing after momentum swing, counter after counter, explosive play after explosive play. It was quite an insane fourth quarter. So, what was your kind of take on what happened in that fourth quarter? Why did the floodgates just seemingly just burst open? And just kind of your thoughts on how it played out.
Yeah, I think it was a situation where just kind of watching that game. I think the fourth quarter itself had two different halves, and I thought it was the first half of that fourth quarter was the defense picking up the offense when they really needed it, and that's something that the defense has done pretty much all season. At times when Clemson has needed it, and kept Clemson in games. Creating those turnovers. I mean, it was paramount. Even the one that Clemson gave right back. It was another possession where Kentucky didn't have a chance to go down and score, and of course they went and got it back again. Like what was it? 3 straight turnovers. Let me make sure I have that right. Okay, so after Clemson scored that touchdown at the beginning of the fourth, Kentucky fumbles, Clemson interception, Kentucky intercept, and then a Kentucky interception. And then Clemson goes down and actually capitalizes, gets a field goal. And then Kentucky fumbles again. And then one play, film off of, what was it, 29 yards for a touchdown. And Clemson all of a sudden has the lead. So the defense created 3 turnovers in the span of, it was, I don't even know how much game time had elapsed, but it was like, there was no more than a couple minutes. And they made, they picked the offense up when they needed it and created those opportunities. And so then in that second half of the fourth quarter, it was the complete opposite. Once Clemson went and took the lead, Kentucky went right down the field, and what was it? One play, 2 or how many plays was it? 3 plays, 75 yards after Clemson goes up 27-21. And so they go back up. Clemson responds. They could have, turtled up, gone in their shell, and not, done what they had done for the majority of this game. But they go right down the field. Get a field goal. Probably should have gotten more if Cade hits Jake Brenningstool in the end zone. But we'll talk about Cade's play later. Kentucky goes right down the field again. Another big play for a touchdown. What does Clemson do? 12 plays, 68 yards, 2 minutes, 2 minutes, 22 seconds to go take the lead. And obviously that was the score that ended up putting them over the top. And then the defense, pulls it out with one last interception to win the game. So I think the defense picked up the offense, and then when the defense started failing, the offense responded and went down the field and scored. And so I think that was huge in Clemson, pulling this one out, because there was no way with how Kentucky was hitting plays, explosive plays at that point in the fourth quarter. There was no way you could have told me that Clemson would be able to respond the way they did offensively. And they did it. And I thought Cade Klubnik had some of his best moments of the season on those last few drives, or those last couple of drives. Just, man, I am still, like, even 30 minutes into this show, I'm still like kind of bewildered, and I have so many moments of this game like jumbling around in my head. But yeah, this one's gonna stick with me, because I just, that was a game I felt oh man, when after that kick return at the beginning of the second half, I was like, this team is not built to come back from this. Especially against a team that had been perfect leading at half for 23 straight games. That's really hard to do. Like Kentucky, like, listen, I don't think people realize how crazy it is to win 23 straight games when you're up at half. Like, I know it sounds counterintuitive, but the odds say you lose at least a couple of those games.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So Kentucky has been a really good second half team, when they've had the lead. And I think they still were a very good second half team. But Clemson managed to kind of weather the storm and make plays of their own. So, man, I'm happy to win this game, and it's hard to take some overarching takeaways from this game, because there were a lot of things that were different about this iteration of Clemson that we won't see again next year. We've seen the 12 games prior. This is not the Clemson team that played that game necessarily, as far as the makeup and all of that. And we won't really see this configuration of personnel next year either. So just kind of hard to take, some big takeaways from this game, other than it was a really, really good football game, and happy to be on the right end of it.
Yeah, look, it's always easier to talk about these things when you're winning, right?
Yeah.
When you come away with a win, it's much easier. We would know we've done it the other way around 4 times this season. But Clemson does come in. They do get their 9th win of the season. Steel Gamble gets in with the $2 super chat. Thank you so much for supporting the channel, Steel Gamble. You're always one of the ones in here commenting and hanging out with us. Get tired of seeing Brown's stupid TD dance.
Yeah. Watching it as a fan is frustrating, but like if one of our players did it, I'd be getting hyped. So.
Oh yeah, I'd have been fine with it. I was just tired of seeing him score touchdowns.
Yeah, no, that wasn't fun. Because I was like, oh man, he is shredding us. Like he's like, that kid can fly. I don't like.
He's fast, man.
There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Like he's special. He's gonna be a really good one. But that's just one of those games where you're like, wow, you got to tip your cap to him. Like he's just a really, really good football player, and he just completely outclassed, Clemson's DBs at times in this game. It was kind of like watching, Jamar Chase in the LSU game, like when he was, it wasn't even really poor coverage by AJ Terrell, but he just kept making plays, making catches, and you were just like, man, this Joe Burrow was putting it right in the bread basket. You were just kind of like, well, we played good for a quarter and a half. We tried, but they're just making plays, and that's kind of how it felt like at times with Kentucky. But definitely some things to clean up, as far as the communication on the back end, and obviously giving up a special teams touchdown, it's just never what you want, especially since Clemson hadn't done that all year. So when was the last time Clemson's given up a kick return for a touchdown? Was that did they give up one last year? I don't think so. I remember they gave up one against UConn a couple years ago on the first play of the game. I remember that.
I think that was the last time, and I
think that's got to be the last time.
Yeah, what was that? 2 years ago?
Yeah, 2021. Yeah. So, man,
it's crazy.
And he didn't even get touched. He just completely beat everybody to the edge. Like he just out-angled everyone. You can't teach that type of speed. That's just a really, really great athlete being a really, really great athlete.
Sometimes
you wish that you didn't over pursue maybe a little bit, but there's not really much you can do about that once he gets going.
Yeah, absolutely.
But thank you, Steel Gamble, for the super chat. Yeah, Barry and Brown, man. I would give. They typically don't give bowl MVPs to the losing player to a losing player, but I wouldn't be upset if they gave it to him because he was incredible.
I wonder who's going to get the MVP.
I'm sure they already announced it.
I'm sure.
Obviously, since we've been on, we haven't had a chance to actually look. I'm gonna see if it's been updated already, because by now they've gone through the celebration.
I'm sure they're done by now. I tell you what, man. I do want to give a shout out to
was MVP. Okay, makes sense. Four touchdowns.
Four touchdowns. Yeah, that'll do it. 4 touchdowns that makes sense. But yeah, man, just to kind of cap off just some of the game talk before we get into specific players and how they played and breaking that kind of stuff down, man. I do want to give a shout out to the offense on that last drive. I'm gonna be honest. I didn't have a whole lot of confidence when we started that drive.
No,
Um,
no, and
I knew I
yeah,
knew we had.
definitely nobody watching us probably had much confidence.
I mean, I knew we
During
had
that drive.
plenty of time to go on a game-winning drive. Time was not a problem. We had our our three timeouts. Um, but to move down the field and not only, you didn't need a field goal, you needed a touchdown. When Kentucky went up by 5, I was like, oh man, that's not good. I'm glad Kentucky scored as fast as they did because it gave
Yeah,
us plenty of time. But our just the inability. I mean, you saw it in today's game, just the inability to push the ball down the field, and it made you wonder. It's like, how are we going to move this ball all the way down the field and score a touchdown? But they figured it out and they did it. And Cade made some gutsy plays, and he didn't play, you know, great his greatest game. He had some mistakes. He still got a lot of growing to do, and we'll get into all that. But he drove Clemson down for a game-winning drive and sealed the deal. And that last ditch or that last play where Phil Maffa ran it into the end zone and
that was just big boy football.
Brenning Stool kind of pulling him along with him. That's big boy football. That's gutsy. He should have been
That's
tackled.
SEC football.
Yeah,
Kentucky was talking about, we
yeah,
got to play SEC football. Well,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
Clemson gave
Welcome.
them some SEC football on that last run.
Yeah, I mean, just Phil Maffa keeping those legs driving on several plays. I think on that drive, Brenning Stool fighting for a first down. There was just tons of plays, gutsy plays made by several guys on that drive, and as bad as they played at times in this game, the defense couldn't win the game there. The offense had to go out and do it, and they did. So you got to give some kudos to the offense and Cade and those receivers and everybody on that offense for just going out there and getting it done. In probable odds, I wouldn't have taken a bet that Clemson would have ran down and scored a touchdown on that drive, but I'm happy that they did, and it is encouraging to see. Like I said, still a ton of growth that needs to happen between now and next season, but at least you're getting out of the 2023 season with one final win. Makes you 9-4. That's much better than being 8-5. I can tell you that.
It looks a lot different, definitely. Like there's something when just mentally looking at it, like the difference between 8-5 and 9-4. Even though it's not much, and obviously we keep saying we're not taking much out of this bowl game, moving forward. But it just from an optics standpoint, it is nice to be to finish with a 9-4 and a 5-game winning streak. With how this season has gone, you got to take your wins when you can get them. Just any way you can get them. So
yeah.
I on Cade, as far as assessing his entire performance, it was a mixed bag for sure. But I thought he had some really, really good moments. I think, honestly, I thought the first half he played okay. I thought he played, especially on Clemson's touchdown drive in that half. They did some stuff to get him out of the pocket, and he was making some good throws. The problem with him, and it has been a consistent problem this year, is just throwing. Cade has to be able to throw with anticipation, and he's got to. And that's something he does not do. He's the timing, whatever, with his receivers, it's still not there.
There's glimpses of it at
there's
times.
glimpses of it.
Yeah.
That on that last drive, I think it was on the last drive when or maybe it was one of maybe it wasn't the last drive, but that out to Adam Randall where he threw it before Adam Randall had even looked. Like he got it out on time. It was a good ball. Like that's the kind of stuff you want to see. But then you have moments where you have Jake Brenningstool matched up, he has a really good matchup, and he's wide, he's open in the end zone. He gets open in the end zone, and Cade is late, doesn't see him, and then the pressure's in his face. And it's moments like that where it's been a consistent thing all season. And you want to see some growth from, and you want to see him get better at that heading into next year. Because I see some people talking about, getting somebody, upgrading and getting a guy from the portal. Guys, that's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. Cade is going to be the starting quarterback next year. So I think the more productive conversations are, how does he get better?
Yes.
And, I've shared my opinions a ton on the All In show about, Clemson's, portal usage or lack of, and what they possibly could do in the portal when it relates to quarterback. But that's just not going to happen. And so the reality is that Cade is a player that has some raw tools. When you watch some of the balls he threw today, and you're like, wow, that's a pretty ball. That some of those throws he made to Jake Brenningstool when he was rolling, to his right, like that's a perfectly placed ball. That one to Troy Stellato, where he wasn't particularly open, but it was a really good ball. It was tight, hit him right in the hands. You're just like, oh wow, yeah. There's the 5-star type throws that we kind of were all waiting for. But then he has the mental lapses. The intentional groundings were pretty bad. The first one was pretty. I'll say the second one I'm not as upset about, because the pressure was kind of in his face really fast, and he had to go make a play. And obviously he made up for it with that big throw to Antonio Williams that set up an easy 4th down conversion from Phil Maffa. So, but again, it's the mistakes and are just, you're too much at this point where you feel confident heading into next year. But you do see some of the glimpses and flashes and moments where you're like, okay, wow, man, if he did that more often, this team maybe doesn't lose 4 games. So it's this offseason has to be about how does Cade make that jump. And Garrett Riley he's going to be under a microscope. We brought him in. We gave him a lot of a pass for this year for a lot of the things that went wrong. A lot of it was pretty unfortunate. But he was brought in because he is a quarterback's coach, and we have a 5-star quarterback that needs to be developed. And so he's going to have to do that. And obviously it's not all on him. I think Cade needs to do his own. He needs to work just as hard. He needs to go and, get whatever coaching he needs to in the offseason to get better, all of that. Kind of like what DJ did from 2021 to 2022. He's going to have to do that same thing. He's going to have to seek that out. And he definitely has connections, being a Texas kid. He has a ton of people that would be willing to work with him. So Cade, I want to give him his flowers for that final drive because, he made mistakes, but he had a short memory, and he made the throws that had to be made and ultimately won Clemson the game. So got to give him his flowers for that. So we wanted him to take those moments and carry them into the offseason and carry it into how he prepares and improves on this year, because Clemson's going to need it. The schedule is not much easier next year. And obviously we know who we open up with in Atlanta. So, there's a lot of growth that has to be made from him, but I thought he had some really good moments in this game. So I wanted to give him credit.
Yeah, look, talking about Garrett Riley a little bit, I agree. We did bring him in because of, the style of offense that he ran, and he's a quarterback coach. And Cade is the type of quarterback that you would assume would excel in a Garrett Riley offense, that style of play. So, there's going to be a lot that needs to happen this offseason. There's going to be a lot of development that needs to happen as far as Cade Klubnik knows, but I think he knows that. And he's already been told that by the coaching staff, and I'm sure that they have a well laid out plan for how he is going to improve. Um, but in today's game, you saw glimpses of what he is capable of when he takes off and uses his legs, and when he extends plays. And part of that is knowing when to do those things, because he does find himself at times holding the ball far too long, which results in some of the poor decisions that he makes. Sometimes it's better just to get rid of the ball, throw it away. If you're going to throw it away, you got to make sure you're outside the pocket, though. He got called for that twice today. Some of his throws are a little high, especially when he's throwing towards the sideline and stuff. He just lets the ball carry a little too much. But again, he made some pretty clutch throws today. You think about that last drive. If there was a drive that I wanted Cade to end this season with, it was that drive that he put together, because it wasn't a drive where we could lean on the running game. It wasn't feasible to lean on the running game. So he had to throw Clemson down there to the goal line, essentially, and then Phil Maffa ran it in for a 3-yard touchdown. So if there was a drive that I had to pick for Cade to end his 2023 campaign on, it was that drive that we just watched against Kentucky. Are they the greatest defense against the pass? No, I'm not saying that at all. But you could see, everything was on the line. There couldn't have been a more pressure-filled situation to end Cade Klubnik's season. And at the end of the day, he answered the call. And that has to be encouraging from a Clemson fan standpoint. Cade Klubnik's not going anywhere. They're not going to get some flashy player out of the portal and replace Cade as quarterback. It's not going to happen. So just stop talking about it. It's not going to happen. Cade is not the only problem on the Clemson offense. I want to make that very clear. We've talked about Cade, a lot on the All In show. We just talked about him right here. He's not the only problem. Look how much pressure was put on Cade today. Look at how many times you saw the pass pro break down in today's game. It only resulted in 2 sacks, but he was pressured far more than those 2 sacks will tell you. He was hit many times. He was pressured and rushed. That interception that he threw in the end zone right after the Clemson defense got a turnover, he immediately turned the ball over in the end zone. Why did he turn the ball over? Because the tight end got completely beat on the edge and he got hit. That's why he turned the ball over.
Yeah.
It was because of pressure. That interception wasn't because Cade made a poor decision. Actually, Brenningstool, the person he was throwing the ball to, was wide open. It was going to be a walk-in touchdown for Brenningstool if the protection would have been good, but it wasn't. And during his throwing motion, he got hit. It caused the ball to carry to the middle of the field, and it was an interception.
Who was in on that play? Because someone I think it was Banks Pope that was in that.
It was Banks Pope that got beat on the edge. Yeah. He set to the inside, and the dude just outran him on the outside and just absolutely obliterated Cade on that throw. So again, you see it, and it's always on the quarterback. And yes, some of it is on Cade, but some of it's on the receivers. Some of it's on the offensive line. There's a lot of things going on. So Cade does need to get better, but I think some people give Cade a little bit more criticism without looking at everything that's going on from play to play in certain instances. So, you gotta just hope that he grows this offseason, and he's gonna be the guy going forward. So, that's just how it's gonna be.
Yeah. So that's kind of where we are. It's how does Cade get better, and how does this staff, this kind of new look staff with the addition of Matt Luke, how does the offensive line develop? Because I thought at times they protected really well, and then their misses in protection were really bad. Mm-hmm. And so I don't think that's an indictment on Matt Luke or anything. He just got here, and that's something we've seen from this offensive line for the entire season. So, I'm interested to see. I see people arguing about the offensive line. I've maintained on here, me and Tiger Paul Craven have maintained on here that there's not a talent deficiency on the offensive line. I think there are some really talented football players, and the talent that they brought in past classes are more than capable of playing better than what we saw at times this year.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, Matt Luke is a guy that is universally acclaimed and universally loved in the industry and from former players. And he has a really, really strong track record. But I don't think the cupboard is bare, even if Clemson doesn't go and get somebody in the transfer portal, because again, there's a lot of guys on this offensive line that were sought out by a lot of big time programs. Tristan Lay was a 5-star. Blake Miller, highly regarded guy. Colin Sadler, highly regarded guy. Harris Sewell, a highly regarded guy. And then not even mentioning the guys that are further in the depth chart that have been in the program a couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
So there's not a talent issue on the offensive line. We don't develop them like we used to. We used to get worse, our offensive line classes. If you go back from 2015, or 2014, 2015, through that 6-year playoff run, and you look at the offensive linemen and at least the high school recruiting rankings of those guys, there weren't a lot of really blue chip guys on Clemson's offensive lines. I mean, you had Mitch Hyatt was a 5-star, and he was a 4-year starter, but beyond that, you didn't really have a ton of guys that were highly recruited out of high school. But you had I thought Robbie Caldwell, for his time, was a really, really good offensive line coach, and did a good job of getting guys to play, better than their talent level at times.
Mm-hmm.
And now I think Clemson has kind of upped their game as far as the recruiting aspect of it. Save for, this cycle didn't go how people wanted it to, but the people already on the roster there's a lot of blue chip talent on there. And now you have an issue of, well, these guys aren't, taking, they're kind of come in. Some of these guys flashed really early as freshmen, but they don't seem to get better. Blake Miller, freshman All-American last year, has been really, really up and down this year and has definitely regressed. Tristan Lay, former 5-star guy, everybody wanted him. Came in, obviously not all 5-stars are created equal. He had some maturing to do from a physical standpoint. He made those changes, and at times he's played well this year, and at times he's looked like a guy that is starting for the first time, even though he's been in the program a while. So I think it's not a talent issue with the offensive line, and I think while they didn't play great at times in this game, they had some really, really nice moments. And you're hoping that Matt Luke can take the really good stuff and kind of take it to that next level, because we both dream of Clemson having a dominant, Joe Moore Award type of, caliber of offensive line, because I think you should be able to get those kind of guys at Clemson with the success that they've had.
Yeah.
There's no reason why the offensive line track record has been as poor as it's been under Dabo.
Yeah.
And it's not even really just under Dabo. Clemson historically has a really poor offensive line track record. So, but you should be able to get better guys. Clemson is in a pretty good recruiting hotbed and footprint to get blue chip offensive linemen. So,
yeah,
and get guys that can play at the next level, at the NFL level. So it's all about developing them into those type of players.
Yeah, and that's honestly, that's really what I am really sick of seeing as a Clemson fan, is us constantly having to overcome an offensive line. We did it through the playoff years.
Yeah.
We probably had, the least touted offensive line heading into most of those playoff matchups.
Yeah.
And we always overcame it with, our skill guys on the outside, our quarterback and our defense. Our offensive line has never been a hallmark at Clemson. And my hope really is just by bringing in a guy of Matt Luke's stature, his pedigree, that will start turning the tide. I know we've started to do it in the recruiting ranks to some degree. Now we need a guy in there that can truly develop those guys and has a track record of putting people in the league. Because, like you said, man, I dream of a day when Clemson, has that dominant offensive line, where that's a strength that people talk about when they talk about the Tigers, which has never really happened before. So, hopefully Matt Luke can start doing that. And I think there's something to be said about the points you made about the talent that's currently on the roster as far as the offensive line goes. By the way that Matt Luke handled the transfer portal, right? He did go after a few guys, but ultimately, he decided to go with some of the high school ranks as far as filling some of those holes. And clearly, he does think there is talent there, because when he did his first interview with the media as Clemson's new offensive line coach, he said in the portal that he was going after guys that still needed development. He was going after guys with 2 and 3 years left on their college careers. So he wasn't going after those, plug and play, 1 year, one and done,
Yeah.
one and done type talent. So to me, that tells me he thinks that he has adequate talent already in the offensive line room.
And I think it also is just a testament to how hard it is to get those type of guys in the portal, because a lot of offensive linemen in the portal, I mean, especially the ones Clemson went after, are guys that were, looking to, they're looking to they're looking for a guaranteed starting position, which I don't think Clemson could necessarily guarantee. Despite, I mean, say what you want about the guys that are playing for Clemson on the offensive line, but I don't look at those guys and look, man, they can't play. Like, they're not good. They have no talent, and there's no guarantee that you bring a guy in and he just gets and he just supplants him, an incumbent starter. Like, that doesn't happen like you think. And so, while I wish Clemson had gotten some guy, like, that doesn't mean I don't wish Clemson had gotten somebody in the portal as far as offensive line is concerned. It is really difficult when you can't promise playing time, or you say, some of what Dabo said, it definitely holds true when it comes to the portal. It's like, I can only guarantee you the opportunity to compete.
Yep.
And at the end of the day, some guys are not looking for that. So, that's what makes it hard. And I think there's enough tools in the tool shed already that, Clemson should still expect to see significant improvement, from these guys next season. With, assuming Matt Luke comes in and is what we all hope he is. So, at the end of the day, and we've talked for a long time by now, and at this point, this team was what it was this year, but I don't think that the future is bleak or anything. I don't think Clemson has fallen off from a talent acquisition standpoint in the high school ranks. I think I've raved about the 2023 freshman class that came in. I'm really excited about the 2024 guys as well. And that these two classes feel more like the Clemson classes of old. So we'll see how they, and at the end of the day, they have to show up and be that. I can't project that and make it come true, but I really am high on these guys. So I think there's a lot of reasons to still feel excited about this program and the trajectory with the guys that they're bringing in. So we'll see.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, a lot of good and some bad in today's game, but at the end of the day, Clemson pulled out a win. We're 9-4 on the season. It feels good to go into spring with some amount of momentum. It's good to see flashes from some of the young guys on this team today, some of the guys that still have quite a bit of playing time to do in a Clemson uniform. So with that said, give me some guys on the offensive side of the ball for our Tigers that kind of stood out to you today and were difference makers in today's game.
Well, I guess first and foremost is Phil Maffa, the bowl game MVP on the offensive side of the ball. Thought he played really well. Didn't get a ton of carries, which was frustrating because obviously he was having more success on the ground game, which is something has been a recurring thing this year. but 4 touchdowns, just some really tough, and all of his, 3 of his 4 touchdowns were just tough. You just get up in, in the dirt, and just drive those legs and find a way. And he did that. That's the type of back he is. Those strong legs, and he played like a guy that wanted to win. I'll say another guy. I thought Jake Brenningstool had a really good game in the receiving game. At least he made some really, really tough catches in this game. Some of those hands catches he was making with guys draped all over him was really, really good. And obviously he had those big catches on some of Clemson's late drives, especially on that last one, that last drive. So Jake Brenningstool, thought he had a really, really good game. Let me see who else. I thought Antonio Williams played. Obviously, he played a very, very limited snap count. But when they needed him the most, he made a play on that. Third and 22, 23?
Something crazy like that. I mean, he caught everything that came his way. He had 5 targets, 5 catches. So he caught everything that came his way.
Antonio Williams and Tyler Brown, I thought they did a better job of getting him the ball, and he got some plays out in space, and they actually blocked for him, and they did it. I know you told me to. I don't know if you told me to name one guy, but I'm just thinking of guys off the top of my head.
No, that's good.
And so he had made a big play on that reverse. He had a couple of screen calls. So when the wide receivers were blocking, the screen plays were working. Let me see. I think Adam Randall had some nice flashes. Man, I really was hoping that non-catch he made on the sideline where Cade just kind of threw it a prayer. That was a really.
It was a good try.
Throw, but it was a stupid throw, but it was a pretty throw, and it was about almost as perfect as a way you could put it. And he was.
It was either going to be caught or be incomplete. So it was kind of a stupid throw, but amazing, try by Adam Randall over there on the sideline. I don't know if he caught it or not. I know they ruled it a catch on the field and then did.
I didn't really see how they did that, but
I don't know how they overturned it because I'm not sure it was a catch in the beginning, but if you called it a catch on the field by the angles that they showed on TV anyway, I didn't really see anything that was like definitely you can turn the ball over because you couldn't see from the angles they showed us on TV, you couldn't see Adam Randall's left foot. His right foot was inbound. You couldn't see his left foot, so you had no idea whether that was, on the ground, out of bounds, or not. So, that was interesting. But I think we had quite a few guys just show out today on the offensive side of the ball. Not necessarily have show out and have breakout games, but just make crucial plays at crucial times in the game. It was kind of spread out in that way.
Oh, pray for Troy Stellato too. I thought he made some really nice. He made a couple of nice catches in this game, and then he got a hospital ball by Cade that just got him destroyed.
Cade was trying to get him murdered, man.
Yeah, that was God. I was and it was a clean hit too. It was. I mean, if I was a Kentucky fan, I would have been hype. But man, that was brutal. It
was a good hit, but he sold old Troy Stellato out to dry on that one.
Left it high and made him go up for it. He was ripe for a
high across the middle. That's a recipe for disaster with your wide receivers.
Dylan Spell mentions Olsen Pat Henry's catch. Yeah, that was a great job by him. He's a guy I'm really high on. I'm excited to see him get more looks next year. Really athletic tight end, had almost built like a receiver. Did a good job of getting open on that play. Cade did a good job of extending the play. Offensive line, I thought, protected pretty well on that play. So that was a really good play overall of just giving Cade time. And there wasn't a lot open, but Olsen Pat Henry worked his way open and he made the catch. So that was a really nice moment. It was good to see him get involved.
Yeah, absolutely.
John Sarah says Cade has tried to get Stellato murdered a few times this year. I don't know if there's beef there. I don't think there is, but if I were a neutral observer, I'd be like, man, he must he must hate that guy.
It's crazy.
And then you're like, and Troy Stellato is a guy that has been, up until this year, a guy that has hardly played at all. And so now you see the hospital balls that Cade is throwing, and you're like, was this happening in practice all the time? And that's why
is this why he could never get on the field?
Yeah. That's got to be it.
This is why he spent 2 years on the sideline, man. But it's crazy because like you see him on the field, and they seem to have great chemistry on the field. Like he looks for Troy Stellato quite a bit. When he's scrambling and stuff like that. I mean, Troy Stellato had 4 catches for 42 yards today. But yeah, some of them hospital balls he gives them, man. I didn't know if Stellato was going to get up after that, which,
No.
And what else is crazy about Troy Stellato is we spent 2 years where this guy couldn't touch the field because he was so injured and couldn't get on the field. And you've seen some of the hits that he's taken and some of the ways that he's gotten banged up this season, and he comes right back out and plays, the next series, the next drive, the next play sometimes. And it's like, man, like this dude must have been like hurt because like, I mean, you see him on the field, like he's a tough dude. Like he'll take a hit. Like he's not, he's not a receiver that takes a hard hit and he's got to go sit down for a quarter. He'll take a hard hit and get back up. So it makes you wonder, man. Like that dude must have been hurt to stay out off the field for 2 years. So shout out to Cade too. Give Cade a little bit of love. He did go 30 of 41 today. A 73.2% completion percentage today, 264 yards, no touchdowns. But again, when it mattered, he made the plays. He drove Clemson down, ultimately scored the game-winning touchdown, handing it off to Phil Maffa. And you got to give him, just a little bit of love for that. Yeah. But let's shift to some of the game changers on defense today. I think there's kind of an endless list over there today. Really, you could say the defensive line as a whole. Yeah. I mean, Peter Woods was out there making some great plays.
He was cooking.
Tyler Davis was out there just, being Tyler Davis, just doing what he always does, disruptive, a problem on the front, being offensive lineman's worst nightmare. I already talked about Barrett Carter earlier about, his amazing play today, both in run support, that tip ball for the turnover, and XT, my boy XT had that strip that got recovered by
home. I was like, man, he's like one of these. He's gonna get there. He was getting close.
Yeah, he got that sack fumble finally.
Wade Woodaz, I thought played a really, really good game, like really tackling good. Especially. Play that stuck out to me was that screen play early on what I think it was Kentucky's first or second drive, where there was if Wade doesn't make the tackle, like the whole defense was fooled and moving the other direction from the play. Man, that was a great tackle on Ray Davis because there was nothing but green grass ahead of him if he doesn't make that. And so it went from a play that could have been a 30-yard gain plus to, I think they only got 4 yards on that play. So I thought Wade Woodaz, he had a really good tackling game, and that was something that I was worried about. Him and Barrett Carter both. I thought they tackled really, really well. And that was something I was worried about. It was like, man, they haven't played a ton. Jeremiah Trotter is out. They're kind of stepping into different roles, and not different roles because you had Kobe McLeod out there, but there was a lot more pressure on them, and I thought they responded really, really well. That was really cool to see, and makes you feel. And again, can't take too much out of this bowl game. So even the positive stuff, I want to be consistent, but I think regardless of the result of the bowl game, you still feel like you have, especially with Barrett Carter coming back, you have a good foundation. For the linebacker room heading into next season. And now it's just about developing the depth behind them and getting them ready to play. I thought Kobe McLeod, thought he had some good moments, thought he had some rough moments at other points. But he's a guy that they're really high on, and he's just going to have to take that next step, and we're going to see how much how much of Wes Goodwin is a developer, and because that's something that we're still very early on, and we still don't know the full answer to that.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I think our linebacking core is in great shape moving forward. With the guys coming in the 2024 class, with the guys we already have in the room, Wade Wood has played really, really good today in Jeremiah Trotter's absence, which was a concern for both me and you, knowing how good this team is at running the ball. Somebody said XT finally played his last game. I'm with Hardtake, man. I'm sad to see XT go, man. He's one of my favorite Clemson players of all time.
Yeah.
Love that dude. So happy that he got that strip sack, affected the game. Amazing story that kid has. I hope he gets a shot in the NFL, and I hope he does great, because he's a dude that just won't quit. No matter what happens, what adversity he faces, he won't quit. Those guys in the back end of the defense, Jordan, there was some, we talked about some of the busted coverage that happened and, some of the other things. But other than that, I mean, you saw Khalil Barnes out there. Jalen Phillips looked good in that new number 1 he was sporting out there. Looked pretty good in that new jersey.
Yeah, his last game too. I mean, it was the last game for a lot of those guys. I was happy to see him just be out there because towards the back half of the year, it was like he couldn't get on the field, just the injuries and stuff holding him back. So good to see him and Mickens, who is coming back, which is a big shot in the arm for the safety room. But it was nice to see Jalen Phillips and Xavier Thomas, Justin Maskell. Justin Maskell had that big fumble recovery off the XT strip sack. So that was cool. Just happy for those guys because those guys were a big part of why this defense was so successful this year. And they all made plays in this game. So that was cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Just shout out to all those seniors that won't be here next year. Tyler Davis, Xavier Thomas, Justin Maskell, Jalen Phillips. Happy they could go out on a win. Happy that they affected the game. They played well. Michael Foster said number 2 got abused. That's our boy Shelton Lewis. He played well at times. He did get bested a few times as well, but he's a young freshman who's coming into his own. He's going to be just fine. He will be just fine. He's a baller.
I still think the world of Shelton Lewis. I mean, he's come in this year when we weren't expecting to need him very much, but he came in and was a guy really early on. They knew as soon as they got him, so we have a player here. Shelton, just a rough game. Had some nice moments in coverage. Obviously, the lapses were big. But he got to redeem himself on that last drive. So I mean, it's one of those things. Like I still feel good about these young corners, Shelton Lewis, Avion Terrell, Khalil Barnes, at nickel. I think those guys are going to be the core of this secondary for the next 2 to 3 years. So really happy and excited to see how they develop and grow because they have a ton of talent.
Yeah, and he got the walk-off interception, so he got to end the game. So what better way to put an exclamation point on your game, your first start in a Clemson uniform than getting the game-sealing interception. You got to love it. But I mean, the defense I think played pretty well. Let's shift gears to the third aspect of the game, the kicking game, the special teams. We said this in our pregame show last night that special teams would be an important part of this game, and boy, was it an important part of this game.
Man,
in
what
more ways than one. In more ways than one, it was a crucial part of this game. We already talked about the Kentucky guy, our boy, running it back for a 100-yard touchdown coming out of halftime. Jonathan Weiss opened up the scoring today with a field goal. I thought that one was no good as well.
Yeah.
I thought it was going to be
It looked
wide
like he
right,
kicked it in a
and then
straight line, and
then
then
it
it just
just did one of these. It just curved in. I was like, oh my god, he about to give me a heart attack. It's the first drive of the game, I swear. But it went in, and then that career long 52 yarder that he hit. I'm pretty sure he might have hit it 41 3/4 of a yard, and it hit that goalpost and tipped over to be a 52-yard field goal. It was crazy to see, but
unbelievable, man.
he goes out with a career long, just insane, man. Like, what in the world?
I watched that and I was like, you know what? Why not? But no, shout out to Jonathan White's. It felt like that Florida State game, it was going to live forever, and when people heard his name. But what he's done this back half of the year, especially these last two games, he really stepped up when Clemson needed him, and that 52-yarder is going to I'm going to choose to remember him by that. That was incredible, and obviously the 3 field goals against South Carolina were just nuts too. Like you're just like, man, he's struggled all year. How does he do that? How does he just come out and start nailing 50-yarders? And I don't know, man. But shout out to Jonathan White's. Gets to go out with a bang. His last year of eligibility. Now he gets to go and take that job in New York or wherever, and live out his career. But shout out to him. That's
Man, dude.
I'll remember him fondly.
What a way to end your career if you're Jonathan Weiss, man. You get called off of your couch in Charleston, South Carolina, by Dabo Swinney to come, kick for the Tigers mid-season, essentially. And then your last 2 games in a Clemson uniform, you literally kick Clemson to a victory against the arch rival South Carolina, and then you hit your career long in the bowl game. Like, man, dude, what an ending for Jonathan Weiss. I'm not so sure we thought it would end as successfully for him as it did, but shout out to him, man. It's just funny when you think about it.
Yeah, unbelievable. I'm just, oh man, I'm so like, just that was like, you know what? I have no idea how like that was even. That was like, that was like divine intervention. Like
It's
that
like
way that ball bounced.
It's like one of them moments where you're like, is this game even real right now? Like, what is this? Like, this has got to be some movie. Like, that fourth quarter as a whole was just like watching like some football movie that Hollywood wrote.
The amount of times I saw the phrase "this game is drunk" was like just across like social media, across my messages, like everyone, like I said it. I was like, yeah, this game is drunk. This game truly was drunk. But especially if you weren't a fan of either team, that was just a fun game to watch. And that explosion in the fourth quarter, that's I don't think there's been a better bowl game so far. I really don't. That game had everything you could possibly want in a football game. Lead changes, explosive plays, turnovers, crazy turnovers, just crazy stuff happening. It was just a wildly entertaining football game. That was so cool.
Absolutely insane.
I would, I absolutely acknowledge I wouldn't be saying it like this if Clemson was on the wrong end of it.
No.
Yeah, I totally recognize that, but
I'd be highly upset.
Yeah.
Highly upset. You know what I just realized? Was there not a turnover until the fourth quarter?
Yeah.
That's insane, dude.
That is crazy. I really I was like, and you know what's funny? Like heading, like I think like early in the fourth quarter, I was thinking neither team has turned the ball over.
Yeah,
and I was like Clemson, but especially Clemson because they hadn't gone a game all season without turning the ball over, and I was like, we're due, and and of course this the universe likes playing jokes on us because we didn't make our first turnover until Kentucky made theirs. So I'm still hype off of the strip sack by Xavier Thomas. and I'm like, let's go. And I'm completely not even thinking about a potential turnover from Clemson.
Very
And
next
then
play.
very next play.
Very next play.
Turnover,
K gets hit while he's throwing the ball, turnover in the end zone. Kentucky gets the ball. And was it on their very next play? They turned the ball over again?
I think it was either that. I think it might have been the second or third play of that drive.
But that series ended in a turnover. I know that, which is just absolutely crazy how all of that transpired. So these teams played literally a clean game up until the fourth quarter, and then basically the floodgates open and anything goes. Just whatever. It was a free for all in that fourth quarter. All 5 turnovers coming in the same quarter. It's just baffling.
And the hard take asks, why wasn't that a handoff to Maffa there? And obviously they on the next turnover they did hand it off to Maffa, but on that one, it's not uncommon. It's not strange for an offensive coordinator when they get a turnover, especially on
take a shot.
Take a shot. That's an opportunity to take a shot because you stole a possession. They're kind of real. The defense is kind of they're kind of reeling. They weren't expecting to be out there, and
it was
I'm not mad at the play call. There was a guy open.
Yeah, it was a great play call. There was a touchdown to be had there.
Yeah, if you block it up, that's a touchdown. And that's the thing. I saw that a lot in this game, and that's part of the thing that Cade has to recognize, and he has to take more develop and see those plays happening before they have to be super wide open for him to see them. Like you have to be able to throw with anticipation, and he doesn't do that very well yet. No. And also the offensive line and protection has to hold up on those plays. And on that particular play, it didn't. Maybe you could say, okay, Cade could have gotten it all maybe a split second faster, but he should reasonably expect for his blitz pickup to take care of that edge rusher. And Banks Pope just completely whiffed, and that's just unfortunate. It's a good play. It's a good play call that was destroyed by bad execution. And sometimes all it takes is one player. So I wasn't upset at the turnover. I was just like, of course it had to happen here. When the momentum happened, because I just that one was excusable because it was a good play design. It was great. Great play to get Jake Brenningstool wide open. We know how good he is in the red zone as a red zone target, and he is open. Like that's a catch more than likely that he's going to make 10 times out of 10. And Cade sees it, going back to throw, missed block, and he gets destroyed, and the ball completely sails. So that one's just a throw your hands up and be like, well, great play by Kentucky, and Banks Pope, what are you doing? So you gotta make that block there, buddy. But he's inexperienced, and that's why I don't. And I think that's probably the better question, Gutter Rich, is like, why are we playing guys like Banks Pope? Too many guys who never earned the right to play for Clemson. Well, I wouldn't go that far. I don't think anybody has earns the right to play for Clemson. But I think in a key moment of the game is not where you want a guy that hasn't played a ton of football out there. I don't think like Banks Pope shouldn't be at Clemson. Like every college football program has guys on the roster. Whether it's former walk-ons, whether it's even scholarship players that never develop into starting caliber players or guys that you expect to rely on, but they fill in your depth and all of that. Mm-hmm. So I guess, but I do think it's a good question of, why him in that particular situation. Maybe he is a better blocker than he's a better blocker than Jake Brenningstool. I mean, and so that's probably why they felt like they had to do, but why not a guy like Josh Sapp instead? So like I think the first question is valid, but I don't want to say that Banks Pope, is a guy, he shouldn't be playing for Clemson or anything like that.
Yeah, no. I don't think that's the case at all, but it's just unfortunate. It just shows that, if everybody doesn't do their job on a given play call, play design, a great play can turn into a disastrous play very quickly by
And this isn't the
one
first
guy
time
getting
that's
beat.
happened this year. It's
Yeah.
not the first time. Garrett Riley and Dabo, they've talked about it all the time. It's if when you can't create explosive plays if guys are with it, because you need to have those time, have time for those plays to develop. And the play was developing. All Banks Pope needs to do is get in the way or just make some contact, slow him down a little bit. Instead, he completely whiffs on the block, and that's what happens. And K gets hit, turnover, and so that's kind of the difference between Clemson and the offense this year. It's the execution from an execution standpoint. It's always this guy not making the block, not making that key block that they have to. It's Cade not seeing the guy open, and not seeing the play before it happens. It's been a mix of both, and they've never really gotten on the right page, and that's been the frustrating part about watching this offense this year. But that's kind of the reality of football. It is the ultimate team sport for a reason.
100%. 100% it is, man. And, it just goes to show how hard it is to execute play calls and stuff. John gets in and says, Clemson board say Maffa doesn't like Shipley. Maffa Tate wouldn't be the person I am today if he hadn't chose to come to Clemson and vice versa. I'm grateful
John,
for
I'm gonna need you to take a break from the Clemson boards.
Yeah, those people that are trying to drum that kind of stuff up, man. I don't know what's wrong with them. I don't know if they just like drama or whatever the case may be. These dudes have been roommates since they got to Clemson.
Yeah,
I don't think
really there's
no evidence that there's any beef there. They're they couldn't be more polar opposites in the way that they approach the game and the way that they act. Shipley is, intense, wear your heart on the sleeve, very emotional. Maffa's reserved, quiet, goes about his business, but there's no beef there. I mean, that's just crazy.
That's just not true.
No.
I know that for a fact. So I don't. And listen, that's why it's like I don't really venture on message boards, because there are good people over there, and they and all that, and I respect people that I think message boards and the idea of message boards are cool, because it gives an opportunity for fans to come together in a common interest and all that. But you're always going to have guys that just say stuff, and that's especially college football fans, because we are probably the craziest people on planet Earth, where we'll say stuff without any sort of proof or anything. So that's kind of that's kind of message board culture at times. So I don't really dive into the weeds on that. No. There's no beef there. They've been great friends for a while now. So wouldn't read into that. And they have very clear ideas of what they want to do. Their future and all of that. They have very clear ideas of, what they see themselves doing. And, I think Phil Maffa said that his decision is independent of whether Will Shipley comes back or not. Because, at the end of the day, these two guys have aspirations of playing at the next level. And, that's the part where it's, I think that's the part where people like jump in and make speculations and all of that, because Maffa's trying to get to the NFL, and maybe he feels like he should be getting more carries or anything like that. I think they sort of project their wish that Phil Maffa gets more carries onto Phil Maffa himself, and I'm sure he would wishes he gets more carries, but I don't think it's that's a result of I don't like Will Shipley. It's just, if you're a running back, if you're a football player in general, you have to carry yourself in the mentality that I'm the guy, and I can do this, and I should be, I feel like I can make every play. And so I'm sure it's like, I mean, if you ask any running back on planet Earth, do you wish you were getting the ball more? Yeah, of course. I hate the guy in my room that I have to share carries with. Like that's a very huge leap in logic.
You can want more carries and then still be happy for, your brother to your right or to your left that's also getting carries, right?
Yeah.
Those two can be, true at the same time.
Right.
So I don't think there's any beef there. People try to create narratives and stuff like that just to have stuff to talk about. But I don't think there's any merit to that. They both got 11 carries today, the exact number of carries
Yeah.
that each of them got. So, it's not like one of them is relegated to the bench when they should be getting carries and they're not getting anything. So, I don't think it's anything like that. If anything, you're just, extending your shelf life as a running back by having less carries.
Yeah. Absolutely. But we spent a lot of time on that, but
Yeah.
I just wanted to get that out there because when people talk about message board stuff, I'm like, oh, bro, I was like, you gotta take what you read on those those sites with a grain of salt, unless it's from one of the people who actually run the site and have the writers. Like say you're on I don't type David Hood. Like if David Hood says something on the message board, I'm going to listen because it's David Hood. He's about as well connected as anybody on planet Earth when it comes to Clemson football. He's got the bat phone, so to speak, that direct line to Dabo. So, if he says something, I'm believing it. If so, that's kind of my thing. Larry Williams over at Rivals too. Like if those guys say something, I'm listening. But I don't care what some random anonymous person on the message boards says about the relationships of our players, because that's just speculation.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. I think that's going to do it for our kind of instant reaction to the game. If you guys got anything you guys want to add, any questions you want us to answer, excuse me, or anything you would like us to talk about before we hop off of here, while you guys are typing your questions and all that into the chat, let me remind you guys, most of you know, but there's 114 people in here right now. So first and foremost, go ahead, hit that like button for
Yes,
us.
please.
If you are not subscribed to the channel, please hit that subscribe button. Me and Jordan do a weekly show called The All In Show right here on this channel every Thursday, 7 p.m. That will continue throughout the offseason, just as it did last offseason. So although this is the last Clemson game and this will be the last live, post-game reaction that we do this season, we will continue to be doing our weekly show every week. So hope you guys will come join us for that. Chop it up about Clemson football, college football, all that kind of stuff. Your support and attendance is greatly appreciated.
Absolutely. Please, because it helps. These types of shows, when we get an increased number of viewers, definitely helps. Hit that like button. And those of you that are new, and, maybe you are. I know not everybody listening to this is a Clemson fan, but I'm sure there are some new Clemson viewers that are tuning in right now. So feel free to subscribe to the channel. Like we said, we do a show every Thursday, so make sure to check us out.
Absolutely.
John says, "Time for some men's basketball talk now."
Oh no! Oh
yeah. Man, when did they get 7 o'clock?
You go get Jordan all riled up.
Yeah.
As soon as they start losing mid-season, Jordan's gonna be outside of his mind on this show.
We'll have more time for that. It's a long off season, and as we get into the off season, we'll have time to talk about that. But
we cover the other sports as well.
Yeah, they got a game tonight, in about an hour and a half against Radford. Should be a victory, but we'll see. Still ranked even after the loss to Memphis, and they bounced back, and so we'll see how they look. Off this Christmas break. Yeah, excited to watch those guys play. John Smith asks, do you think Wesco will make a huge difference for wide receiver next year? We need a deep threat badly. I think he certainly has the opportunity to, John. I do think, he's a guy that is going to come in and need some physical developing to do. He's 6'3", but only about 170 pounds. I mean, you look at him; he's a very, very slight frame. I think he's really physical for his size, but obviously, and he has that. He's a very natural catcher of the football. That's just what he does. And honestly, he's pretty underrated after the catch. But I do think getting into the strength program and and building some muscle will be good for him. And I think he'll have a really good opportunity next season to be an impact guy, because I do think he is a step up in sort of the talent level from the receivers that Clemson currently has right now.
Yeah, those two dudes are going to be game changers, man. Brian
Yeah.
Wesco, TJ Moore.
Yeah, Brandon Rowland echoes that. Stellato, Wesco, Moore will be deep threats this year. Yeah, and I'm excited to see what Stellato does with a full offseason. Hopefully he's healthy. I mean, he's a guy you see the moments and you see the flashes, and you're like, okay, yeah, there's the 4-star recruit that they beat out Ohio State for. So yeah, really excited to see how he develops in the next year, because he's a guy that deserves to have a lot of success, and he's come through at some key points this year for this team. So excited to see him. Really, TJ Moore is a guy. He'll be a summer enrollee, but he's another guy. I think he's more. I think the learning curve will be. Honestly, I think it won't be as fat as. It won't be as. I don't think the learning curve won't be as big for him, because I think physically he's a little bit more mature than Brian Wesco is. So I think he's a guy that could afford to come in, as a summer enrollee, and
you've seen
your guy can compete.
You've seen plenty of examples of freshman wide receivers at Clemson coming in the summer and having huge impacts.
The last 2 seasons.
Antonio Williams and Tyler Brown.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm excited about, to Brandon's point, Troy Stellato as well, man. Like, it's really crazy. I think we talked about it a couple shows ago on the All In show about how this will be his first off season, really, his first spring, his first summer, all that kind of stuff, man. Like, it's crazy to think how much time he has spent injured and what this guy might look like after having a full spring and a summer and all that stuff heading into next season, especially when you've seen how he started to really produce down the stretch of this season. So, and he's quick and he's tough, and he's a problem in open space. He's a guy that creates separation and gets open. So it's going to be exciting to see what he's got to offer next year.
Yeah. John says, Hannafin isn't a slow guy. Can he be a solid out route runner? Maybe. Lacrosse players know how to leverage body and position. Yeah, and I mean, he did a lot of that in high school. It's just, when you play in, for some players, it's a learning curve. Obviously, he didn't play in the most talent-rich state. He's a guy from Massachusetts. But he's a multi-sport athlete. Obviously, Clemson has had a ton of success with multi-sport guys, and this program loves to get guys that play multiple sports. But I think he's just a guy that had some developing to do and had to understand his role in the offense, and so he's a guy that wasn't going to play a ton outside of special teams. So I'm excited to see what kind of jump he makes. Got the redshirt year. So they won't have to. He'll still have his 4 years of eligibility. So excited to see what another year in the program and understanding the Garrett Riley offense. Maybe he shows up and is a guy that's up for a lot more snaps. We'll see. John asks, isn't Cole coming back? In reference to Cole Turner, yes, he is coming back. At least as far as I know, in this day and age of the transfer portal, people can up and leave at a moment's notice. But yeah, he's coming back as of now, and I think they've consistently said he's one of the fastest players on the team, and you've seen it at times. You've seen the speed, but he's a guy that hasn't been playing wide receiver for very long, and obviously the injury this year did not help. And so we'll see what he looks like with another off season. and an opportunity to get on the field. And I guess that kind of goes into what the Hard Take asked about. Do we have anybody fast like that guy that played for Kentucky? Yeah, Barian Brown.
Yeah, we do.
I think we have some. I think we have some guys potentially, but you just at the end of the day, you got to see it. You got to see it. Yeah, but Barian Brown, yeah, he's special. Yeah, that guy, that was what a performance. Bleak Simpson says, I think him and Brown Williams healthy now. It'll be very explosive, but it's all our quarterback. It's time for more explosive in the play calling. Yes. And I don't think – I won't say necessarily that the play calling has been conservative all the time. You've seen this team try to scheme up shots. It's just you got to – you can't make your quarterback's got to take them. He's got to see them and he's got to take them. And so at times this year they took them. The Syracuse game, thought they did a good job of creating some big explosive passing plays. In other games, not so much. You had guys, something I've seen consistently this year is I don't think there's a problem with wide receivers being schemed open. I think Garrett Riley has done that. But you've got to be able to, as a quarterback, you have to be able to anticipate those guys and throw with anticipation. You can't sit and wait until they're wide open because there's not, especially when you're playing against well-coached defenses, wide open doesn't happen very often. So you got to be able to throw with anticipation, got to be able to read what you're looking at. And that's something that Cade has to develop in, and offensive line has to give him time. John Sarian says Dabo just passed Bobby Bowden for most bowl wins in their ACC career. I would assume he's talking about Bobby. Well, actually, maybe not. No. Maybe. Hold on. No, because it's not. It wouldn't be possible for it to be Tommy Bowden because Tommy Bowden was only here for 10 years, and he definitely did not win 10 bowl games. So yeah, Bobby Bowden. I was just making sure. I was like, wait, doing the math in my head real quick.
So update on Will Shipley. I was just looking up to see if there was any sort of news, and I guess obviously Dabo was asked about it. Said the preliminary findings were good. So, the test, the manual test they do to the knee looked pretty good, but they're going to do an MRI tomorrow, obviously, to get confirmation. But he said it looked like best case scenario so far. But again,
well, that is really, really good news.
MRI could prove to show something else tomorrow.
Yeah.
So
that's always possible.
Let's hope it stays on the up and up and good news. But
it looked bad. So
it did look bad. It looked very bad.
This is for now. This is that's nice news. Yeah, Brandon Rowland says Torrey Stellato was a 4.3 guy coming into Clemson. Hopefully by next season he's 100%. Yeah, I mean, I don't know about the 4.3. I don't remember what his number, if he ran a 40 or if they reported that. But yeah, when he was coming out of high school, yeah, he's one of the fastest receivers in the class. And then you watch especially his tape at camps and stuff. Man, you saw it. Like he was flat out burning guys off the line.
Yeah.
So you gotta hope, does he still have that? Because with all the injuries he's had, and he has to learn to trust his body again. That's another thing we've talked about that with Adam Randall. You have to be able to, as a receiver, you have to be able to trust your body. And sometimes when you had an extended injury history, it makes it tough. And so I think part of why he may not look as fast as that is because he doesn't really trust his body yet. And that's, I think that's part of the reason why Adam Randall at times doesn't look like that. So that's a thing you always have to consider. John says, but yeah, Bobby Bowden, not Tommy, not Terry. Yeah, definitely not Terry.
He passed Terry a long time ago.
Yeah. Definitely not Terry. But yeah, and I was like, yeah, that math doesn't work out for Tommy anyway because he was only here for 10. Dabo is what now? what's his bowl record now? I think it's 12-7,
Something
or
like
11-7. What is it? Somebody fact check that, because if you include, because you have to include the college football playoff games where he won, 1-2 bowl games. So yeah, I think it's like 11-7. I'd have to look it up. So yeah, what a career. I mean, winning record in bowl games, and I think Clemson is. I think that makes them 25-20 or something,
He
or
would
25-21.
be 12-8 now.
Oh,
in bowl
12-8.
games. 12-8 in bowl games.
Okay.
He was
I was
11-8 coming into to this game.
All right, that makes sense. So, and Clemson is, they've been to a ton of bowl games. Like, they're like top 20 all time in bowl appearances. I think they are 25, and they're like 25, 26, and 21 or something like that. So positive bowl record for the program, positive bowl record for Dabo, and he breaks Bobby Bowden's record. That's cool. That's really cool.
Mm-hmm.
Really, I mean, the two best coaches in ACC history at this point, I think, based on, if you just go down the track record of those guys. So that's really elite company. Brandon Rowland wants our Michigan-Alabama prediction. I've been going back and forth, Brandon, on that game, because so much of me wants to say, like, it's hard to bet against Nick Saban in these type of spots, especially in a semifinal game. I really don't know it, because so much hinges. This is such a different Alabama team from teams that from Alabama teams they've had in the past. This has been a very flawed Alabama team that has, when they've looked good, they look really good, and you're like, oh yeah, that looks like Alabama. And then they have moments where, like, wow, that, what was it, 4th and 31 to beat Auburn? Like, that's a not good Auburn team. But you beat Georgia in the SEC championship. You beat LSU, and I don't know. They've had moments really high highs and low lows. The loss to Texas, they just got flat out outplayed. But I think Jalen Milroe has definitely improved over the course of the year. But Michigan's defense is really good, and they've been the more consistent team throughout the season. Yep. I don't know. I'm gonna lean Alabama because it's so tough. I think Michigan's a 1.5 point favorite. So basically,
I think it's gonna be close, man. It's gonna be a tough game.
I don't think Michigan is built to beat to blow Alabama out or anything like that. Like, no. I think Alabama has the playmakers. Like, if this game were to be a blowout, I would lean towards it being Alabama, because I think they have more playmakers on the outside. With guys like Isaiah Bond has been playing really, really good football. Jalen Milroe with his legs, and also he's progressed a bit as a passer. So I expect this to be a close game, but I think Michigan would rather it be a close game, a competitive, tight, low-scoring game than maybe Alabama, because if it gets pointsy, I would lean towards Alabama, because they've been, I don't know, more explosive, and I'm not completely sold on JJ McCarthy yet. I think he's really talented, but I think he has some moments where you're like, I don't really see it. So, what do you think?
Yeah, man. Look, I think it's going to be really close. I'm going to lean Alabama just because of who Alabama is, who their coach is. I feel like you just have to. Last time they were in this position where they, I guess, eked into the playoffs at the 4 spot, they went on to win the whole thing. So, I tend to lean Alabama for this. But again, I think it's going to be a really close, hard-fought game. I don't see a blowout either way the game goes. But I'd take Alabama.
Yeah. I think so too. And really, Michigan has to prove it to me at this point. They have to prove they can win these type of games. The last 2 seasons, they got in this game and looked bad.
Who you got on the other side?
Texas, Washington. Yeah, that game. That's a more intriguing matchup. I'm going to go Texas. I think they have the line of scrimmage advantage, and I think Texas's defense is going to be a step up from what Washington has seen in the Pac-12.
Yeah, I'm gonna
yeah,
go Washington. I'm gonna
okay.
go Washington.
I think it's going to be a good game.
I'm gonna pick Washington. I don't know why I'm picking Washington. You know, but I just think they're an explosive offense. They've been doubted several times this season. They always bring it. They always come to play. And I don't know, man. I just got a feeling they're gonna be up for the task. Everybody's kind of dismissing Washington a little bit, obviously because of the conference they play in. And
sounds kind of familiar, doesn't it?
Yeah, it sounds real familiar. You know,
and
obviously.
I saw somebody say that this Washington team gives like 2015 Clemson vibes, and I kind of see it. I think 2015 Clemson's defense was a lot better, but the build of the offense is very similar. Deshaun, Michael Penix is like a Deshaun Watson. He's not. I'm not putting him up there with Deshaun Watson, but he kind of has
style,
that kind of moxie and that kind of style of play. And the receivers are elite. Washington does have a better offensive line than Clemson had in that year. But the receiving talent is very, very similar. They have they're not a crazy good running team, and neither was that 2015 Clemson. Like a lot of their rushing production was Deshaun Watson. Wayne Gallman was a really, really tough runner. But you could stop that running game if you had to. And that's kind of what Washington has been. But their bread and butter was explosive passing plays down the field with Rome Odunze, Jalen Polk, McMillan. Like they have some dogs, man.
Oh yeah.
Like I watch Washington and I'm like, man, this is what we used to look like.
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah,
and plus it's fun to kind of just pick the new kid on the block, if you will. I know Washington's made the playoffs before, but
they are a lot better than that. What was that 2016 where they got? Honestly, I didn't think they played that bad against Alabama, but they were clearly outmatched.
Yeah, they just got thumped. I think they have a legitimate shot this time, and I'm gonna go with them beating Texas.
I like it. I think I'm going to root for Washington. I'm picking Texas, but I think I'm going to root for Washington because they do. I mean, Washington's a program that honestly historically has a lot more success than people realize, and this is they were they won a national championship 30 years ago. No, 20 years ago. No, 30 years ago. And I think they shared it with Miami in 90. What year was that? 91. I think 91.
Sounds about right.
And they've had some really good teams since then. So I'm gonna pick Texas, but Washington has been a really, really fun football team to watch. Michael Penix, Heisman runner-up. Those receivers, man, special guys. Rome Odunze is going to be a first-round pick.
They're going to be fun to watch, regardless if they win or not.
Yeah.
It's going to be a fun game to watch, I think.
And Texas has some dogs on that offense as well. Really good offensive line. Quinn Ewers obviously is playing really, really good football. But A.D. Mitchell, Xavier Worthy, those guys they've got some guys. So that's going to be I could totally see this game being a shootout. That would be really fun. But Texas has a really good defense, so it's going to be a really good matchup. So that's the one I'm definitely more excited to watch from just a matchup standpoint and a excitement standpoint.
Absolutely.
All right. Anything else? We typically don't go this long on these post game shows, but this is the final one of the year, so screw it.
Why not? Why not? No, I think that's it, man. We kind of gave our. I'm glad we gave our college football playoff picks before we got out of here. So you're going Bama to win and Texas to win. I'm going Bama to win and Washington to win. So either way, we're going to get some new blood as far as the college football playoff is concerned in the championship game. So regardless of whether Texas makes it or Washington, it'll be either one of those teams' first time in the college football playoff national championship. So I think that's good. But yeah, I don't really have anything else. I'm sad this is the last post-game live video we'll do for the season. But again, we'll still be doing the All-In Show every week, Thursday, 7 p.m. Hope all you guys tune in with us. And we'll keep this thing rolling throughout the offseason. I'm sure there'll be a ton to talk about with the transfer portal and conference realignment and what's the future of college football and all that sort of stuff. Not to mention spring will be firing up before we know it, and we'll be talking about spring games and all that kind of stuff. So there's still a ton to keep us busy in the off season. It's a sport where we only play a short amount of time, but it's a year-round sport as well. And if you're a college football junkie like me and Jordan, stick around with us because we'll keep this ball rolling throughout the long 8-month off season that we're about to go through.
Yeah, absolutely. They want to hit this. Dylan asked, who do y'all have in the matchup tonight, Missouri or OSU? I'm going to go with Ohio State just because I think, even though Kyle McCord hits the transfer portal, I think Devin Brown is really talented, and Ryan Day with time to prepare, usually they come out and play really well.
I'm gonna go Mizzou because screw Ohio State.
I completely understand that. Missouri is a program that like my fondness of has grown over.
They get disrespected, man.
Yeah,
they get disrespected.
Eli Drinkwitz he's kind of a goofy dude. And you look at him and you're like, this is a college football coach, but really, really good football coach, and he owns South Carolina, so that's pretty fun. Like even going back to his time at App State, like he's been beating South Carolina for years. So I always enjoy that, and they're right like a 4-game winning streak against them right now. So respect them for that, and they're having a phenomenal season. It's a really good football team. They're recruiting, better than they have. They have some advantages with the state laws with the NIL and stuff. So they've been kind of taking advantage of that, but hey, that's good on them. Hey. And they have a really good guys on the roster. Brady Cook has been really, really good this year. Luther Burden has been just one of the best receivers in college football. Defensively, they've gotten a lot better. Shout out to Joseph Charleston. He's been a starter for them for a couple of years now. One of the few like real Clemson transfer success stories. I mean, he's been really good. He's a guy that didn't play a ton while he was here. Transfers out. He's developed into a really nice player. So shout out to Missouri, and I'll be watching that game. I'll be kind of similar to how I picked Texas, but we'll root for Washington. I'm picking OSU, but I will root for Missouri.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Any update on Shipley? Yes, Tony. Dabo was asked about it in his post-game press conference and said that the tests they've done so far looked promising, but they're going to do an MRI tomorrow. So more news to follow, obviously, tomorrow or the following days. But right now it looks to be best case scenario. So hopefully it stays that way. Who gets QB2 next year, Tiggs asked. Last one before we get out of here. Chris Vezina will be QB2 next year.
I think, I think so. They've been really complimentary of Trent Pierman, but, I think the hope is that Chris Vezina takes that next step. Yeah.
All right, guys. I think that'll do it for the final edition of the post-game live videos of the 2023 season. It was not the season that we thought it would be for the Clemson Tigers, but guess what? We got through it together. We end up 9-4 overall. We win a bowl game. Dabo's 12th win in a bowl game. We sent our seniors off with a good win. which I think is super important. And now we're on to the off season, right? We're going to watch the college football playoffs. We'll have an all-in show next week and throughout the off season every Thursday, 7 p.m. We'll talk about the college football playoffs. We'll talk Clemson stuff. It'll be a great time over there. Hope you guys join us. Jordan, go ahead and send the people off, my friend.
Yeah. Once again, thank you guys. It's been great, covering this team for, this year and doing this post-game show. Appreciate each and every one of you that tune in. And yeah, it's pretty bittersweet. I always hate, this time of year because, man, the season didn't go how we wanted, but, come next week, I'm going to be like, man, we got to wait a really long time before we see Clemson play football again. So, that's the cycle of being a college football fan, whether your team is good or bad. So, seriously, we really appreciate the support. Glad to go out with a bang. This one did really, really well. A lot of people tuned in. So please hit that like button and support us any way you can, and stick around for the off season because we're not going anywhere.
Yeah, absolutely. There is no off season right here on the Voice of College Football Clemson channel. Come join me and Jordan every Thursday at 7 p.m. We'll be talking all things college football, all things Clemson football on the All In Show. Until then, until next time, I'm Tiger Paul Craven. He's Jordan Bowman. Go Tigers.
Later, y'all.